It's crazy to think that there are many things trapped in ice all over the world that we may only gain access to following the thawing of the world's ice. From disease to animals, from treasures to photos, I'm here to show you the bizarre, the intriguing, and the somewhat scary. I'm Board Badger, and it's time to hold on to your hats, ladies and gents, because I'm about to take you on a wild ride through most mysterious things frozen in ice. Number 9. Photographs of Another Time. Back in 2013, a lockbox was found frozen in a block of ice by conservationists who were attempting to reconstruct huts in the Arctic. The photos were of an expedition that apparently ended when the ship that they were using became stuck in the ice and had to be abandoned. Although the crew members survived their ill-fated voyage, the photos seemed to depict a nervous and worried band of men, as though they had thought their days on the Earth might be coming to a close. One of the more notable photos is a man standing tall and proud, a man named Ernest Shackleton, the leader of said expedition. They ended up reaching Elephant Island and eventually South Georgia, a small inhabited island, and were able to re-reach civilization. But the photos were left behind and made for a bizarre thing to find for the researchers. I mean, I'd be a little freaked out if I found a bunch of old pictures in a block of ice in the middle of the Arctic, wouldn't you? Number 8. Preservation level 100. This Incan mummy was found on the edge of a volcano called Uyayaco on the border of Chile and Argentina, alongside what is assumed were her children. What makes this mummy unique is the level of preservation of the body. Researchers were freaked out when they examined her, as the body was so lifelike and undecomposed, and one researcher even noted that her hands were super realistic and that they reminded him of a living, breathing human. The mummy was so well preserved, in fact, that she still had lice in her hair and she was still so remarkably intact that doctors were able to conclude that she was afflicted with many ailments, including tuberculosis, and it's believed that she may have been sacrificed to the volcano due to these ailments. She looks so real, so fresh. Crazy to think that she was thought to have been living around 500 years ago. Number 7. A successful experiment. So back in 1959, Paul T. Walker, a geologist, took it upon himself to try and prove that glaciers were melting. He wrote a note, put it inside a bottle, and buried it under rocks near a glacier. Fast forward to 2013. In the year 2013, 2 researchers found a bottle encased in ice, and guess whose bottle it was? That's right, Mr. Walker's. And you can take a peek at his note and where it was found right in this here picture. They opened it up and read what the note said, and saw something not only exciting, but quite scary as well. Walker's theory proved correct, seeing as the note held instructions to measure the distance from where the bottle was found to the nearest ice shelf. The researchers did and found out that the shelf had receded more than 200 feet. Talk about a strange find in ice, and talk about a strange realization as to what's happening to our planet. Number 6. Disease. We all know that sometimes it's best to leave the past in the past, right? Well, there's really no better example of that than something that's begun to happen in Siberia. So things freeze into the ice in Siberia because, well, it's friggin' cold. And sometimes it goes beyond objects, cars, and at times, animals. Sometimes viruses and diseases are frozen in time and wait and wait and wait for there to be the right time. A time when they're thawed out by global warming to be unleashed yet again. This photo shows a virus that was frozen for 30,000 years, which was recently revived by scientists. And in 2016, more than 20 people were infected with anthrax found inside an infected reindeer that had died over 75 years previously. The carcass had been frozen under a layer of frozen soil called permafrost, and there it stayed until rising temperatures thawed the permafrost out in 2016. The anthrax contained inside the reindeer was released into land in nearby water and eventually made its way into a food supply. This led to more than 2,000 nearby grazing reindeer becoming infected, which in turn led to the small number of human cases. This is probably not the last time this will happen, as scientists believe that the Earth's permafrost could hold an array of deadly diseases and viruses that could one day be unleashed due to the effects of global warming. All we can do is hope and pray that this doesn't happen, but we don't know until it does, and that's the scariest part of that all. Number 5. Iceman. An extraordinarily well-preserved body, which still held onto its internal organs if you can believe it, was found in September of 1991 by 2 German tourists. The 2 thought that they had stumbled upon a recently passed alpinist due to the freshness and fullness of the body. However, upon scientific testing, the body was found to be over 5,000 years old. When x-rays were taken of the man, who was deemed Otzi, They showed that he had received an arrow in his shoulder, and they believe that could have been a significant clue as to how he died. And it is thought that he died due to blood loss from the wound. Scientists also found a partially digested meal in his stomach. Ötzi also sported a total of 61 tattoos, which were still visible and were able to be studied by the scientists. After his passing, the ice overtook him and wrapped him in a big old ice cocoon and preserved him quite well until he was found. Number 4. All the Jewels. In 2013, a young mountaineer was climbing Mont Blanc in the Alps, stumbled upon quite the thing as he was climbing. He first saw a bag. A bag had the Made in India printed on it, and upon further looking, he saw more bags. Lots of them. When he opened them up, he found rubies, emeralds, and diamonds. He, being the kind young guy he is, handed the precious stones over to French police. Reportedly, the treasures were said to belong to a family who perished in an air crash in the Alps in 1966. Some 117 people lost their lives in the accident. The flight had been traveling from Bombay to London, and the crash was thought to be the result of a misunderstood instruction from a radar controller to the pilot, in which the pilot thought he was past the mountain and began to descend too early, finding himself and the plane on a direct course for the mountainside. Can you imagine if the young mountaineer decided to keep the treasures for himself? He could be living the life right now. Number 3. Wreckage from the past. An Alaska-bound military transport aircraft was nearing its destination when something went wrong. It crashed, and everyone on board, well, you know. That was way back in 1952, and it took until 2012 for the site of the crash to be searched and for the bodies to be recovered. Why, you may ask? Well, in the days and weeks following the accident, heavy snowfall set in the area and the search had to be postponed. A helicopter passing over the area 60 years later spotted some of the wreckage just poking up out of a crack in a glacier, and the rest is history. The search did gain some understandable hype and publicity in 2013 when it was found that the wreckage had actually moved some 22 kilometers from the site of the actual crash back in 1952, due to global warming. Some of the bodies from the crash are said to have sunk to the bottom of Lake George, which is close by and are just waiting to be swooped. And who here still thinks global warming isn't a thing? Number 2. Siberian Sicknesses. I know I already mentioned disease and viruses being trapped within the ice itself earlier on in this video. Here's another way those diseases are incubated, just ready to be unleashed when thawed out. Sometimes human remains are found buried in the ice that were put there for a reason. Now people are digging them up and releasing some genuinely unnerving things. Diseases. Ancient. And even more recent, Siberians would bury these bodies deep, and they'd be frozen over and the ice would help keep the disease from spreading. But now that we're digging those bodies up, the diseases are resurfacing and making a comeback, something that doesn't sound very good to me. Smallpox was found present in a body that was found frozen in a river in the country not long ago. But luckily for us, the researchers that discovered it were smart and quarantined it at a hospital and took proper precautions to keep the disease from spreading to the masses. So that's something mysterious and kind of creepy that's been found buried in ice. Disease. Who would have thought? Big ol' itty bitty woolly baby rhinoceros. So first of all, I didn't even know that woolly rhinos were even a thing. But apparently they are, and apparently we found some. Dead of course, but still. Sasha, the world's first and only baby woolly rhino to be discovered, was discovered back in 2015. Her body was preserved in permafrost, as you can see here, which kept her really intact. She was found on the bank of a stream and has been called a truly historic discovery. Scientists estimate that Sasha perished at around 18 months old. And her wool, an ear, an eye, nostrils, and mouth are all very well preserved given the age of the specimen. As you can see in this picture here. How old is she, you may ask? Well, it's believed that she was walking to Earth at least 10,000 years ago, so yes, the find is exceptional. I can't imagine finding something that old, or that well preserved in the ice. It'd be like having your own unique looking glass into the past, and something like that is truly invaluable. I'm sure it has to be quite shocking to be minding your own business and then to stumble onto some excellent unexpected thing buried inside the ice. Like finding a little time capsule where life has stayed the same for years and years, untouched and uninfluenced by our hectic world. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to stop on by Board Badger for videos like this every couple of days. And thanks for having me on the channel, American Eye. Always a good time, and I hope your viewers enjoy.
So which one did you think was the most mysterious? Let us know in the comments section, and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video.